There are no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Terrence Shannon Jr. deserves to have his number retired. Locked on Illini, let's go.
You are Locked on Illini, your daily podcast on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked on Illini your first listen every single day. A simple reminder, we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and here on YouTube, a part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every single day. Today's episode is going to be brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. The men's Fighting Illini basketball team has had quite a busy offseason. We've had a bunch of players leave the program. We've had a bunch of players come into the program. But all in all, there's been no news bigger than the conclusion of the Terrence Shannon Jr. trial saga. Obviously, last week we heard that Terrence Shannon Jr. went through his whole trial process and the jury ultimately awarded him a not guilty verdict. Now, there were attempts by the prosecution that to kind of settle for a plea deal, but Terrence Shannon Jr. from the start was just not interested. He believed in his innocence, as did his team. And fortunately, it seems justice did prevail. Terrence Shannon Jr. is going to be moving on with his life, playing in the NBA. He should be drafted somewhere in the first round in the NBA draft coming up in the next couple of weeks. But there's some fans who aren't ready to necessarily close the door on his time with the Illini. Very closely after this verdict came up the topic on whether Terrence Shannon Jr. would be able to get his jersey retired by the Illini next season. Now, in order to have this process happen, there's a certain qualifications that need to be met. 1, National Player of the Year. 2, enshrined in the National Basketball Hall of Fame. 3, Big Ten Player of the Year. 4, be a consensus first or second team All-American. 5, Illinois All-Century team member. Or 6, an individual whose pioneering efforts made a significant impact on Illinois and international basketball. Now, there's one of those that a lot of people would argue Terrence Shannon would have been able to secure last year. And obviously, I'm talking about winning first or second team All-American. Worst case scenario, Terrence Shannon Jr. was the third best player in college basketball last year. If you ask me, he was the second best. There was Zach Edey and then kind of everybody else. But then there can be an argument made whether Terrence Shannon Jr. or Dalton Knecht was the second best player. But regardless, there's multiple wing spots on an All-American team. And this qualification suggests that he had to make just the first or second. Now, a lot of writers decided to exclude Terrence from their All-American voting because of the ongoing trials that was happening off the court. Whether you agree with that or not, it's up to you. But as evidence has come out, and obviously now the jury has ultimately decided, on that night in September, it looks like nothing involving Terrence Shannon Jr. occurred. And for that, I don't think he should be punished like he has. We have a basketball player who, knowing it was going to be his last year in college basketball, he improved on every facet of his game. He averaged 23 points a game, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, shot 48% from the field, 36% from 3, got to the free throw line 9 times and made 80% of those free throws. He was the alpha on one of the best teams in college basketball last year. And he did all this with this court trial hanging over him. This is a young man who's proven to be one of the most mentally toughest, not even sports players, humans that I've ever come across in my years of life. He's a kid who never stopped working, never stopped working out, just focused all his energy on the basketball court, and unfortunately was punished for something out of his control. I don't think a basketball player should be punished twice. There's a growing consensus that he would have finished, if not first team All-American, certainly second. And because of that, Josh Whitman on Thursday is going to have a media roundtable. And I'm sure this question is going to be asked, and asked a lot. Is there any room for making an exception for Shannon? It's one thing when a player makes a mistake, gets himself involved in a situation where he regrets it, where he performs an act and then he apologizes for it afterwards. This was not one of those cases. This was simply a false identification of a basketball player who just happens to be in the same venue as the accuser. He's not being punished for something he did and he regrets. He's being punished for something he did not do. And now I know Josh Whitman's a lawyer. He's one of the most intelligent people I've ever come across. And he's fantastic at lawyer speak. But I think he knows that sometimes exceptions just have to be made. And Terrence Shannon Jr. is one of those exceptions. He just produced the greatest year in Illini basketball history. He led the team to an Elite Eight run, something the team hasn't done in a very, very long time. All this, again, with the burden of a trial being held over his head. Terrence exemplifies what you want representing your university. Hard work, dedication, focus, and the ability to excel despite the circumstances around him. Terrence Shannon Jr. needs to be celebrated. All season long, he wasn't able to come out and talk to the media, tell his side of the story. His lawyers wouldn't let him. He was having one of the finest seasons in college basketball, and as I mentioned, the finest season in Illinois men's basketball history. But he wasn't given the chance to celebrate it, to cherish it. In fact, it was the opposite. He was being ridiculed online by national media outlets who, keep in mind, were quick to judge Terrence Shannon Jr. when the news dropped, but have been crickets since the verdict came out. And you guys know who I'm talking about. Don't forget that. Hold them accountable. Terrence Shannon Jr., he's a good young man. He deserves a lot better. And first and foremost, the Illini can go ahead and start making things right by retiring his jersey at State Farm Center sometime next year. Let Terrence have his moment. He's deserved it. He's earned it. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else. Even those who aren't actively searching for a new job might be open to the perfect role. just going to be honest, last time I was hired for my last 9 to 5, it was through a recruiter reaching out to me through LinkedIn. So I can vouch for this. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Bret Bielema updated the media today on the injuries and the Zakhari Franklin arrival finally earlier on Monday. And needless to say, Bret was very excited. Now, I actually talked about this on Locked On College Football. I'll drop a link, or maybe I'll just include it in a segment later on this week. Now, he talked about how the team needed a player like Zakhari Franklin. And I guess essentially the reason he didn't commit was the rumors were kind of true. It's kind of the admission process at Illinois. It just took a little longer than it usually it might for other universities. But he's here, and the good news is, for the most part, the team looks pretty healthy. They've gotten everybody on campus that they were expecting to have on campus, minus a couple guys who are transitioning from high school, but those were not unexpected. They're still going through the process. As for the actual injuries, Bret Bielema told us this: nothing significant from an injury standpoint, stated Bielema. Literally all of the guys that we had are full go. We have had a couple of guys with some soft tissue injuries, but with weather like this in the workouts, our guys have been doing. We had just a couple of guys, but nothing that would limit, prevent, or prohibit anybody from fall camp as we speak. Now, obviously, this is fantastic news. More so on the running back side. Aiden Lawfrey got to get his run at the Illini spring game, but a lot of the other running backs were noticeably missing. Now, it wouldn't be such a big deal if our entire running back room wasn't hurt last year. So knowing that those guys are for the most part ready and full go is kind of comforting, because I think that running back room, which we'll talk about in a future episode, is one of the best running back rooms in the entire conference. And combined with what's supposed to be a pretty good offensive line, I think that running game is going to be key to let Luke Altmaier develop in his second full year as a college football starter. Now, Bret also did talk about how they are not going to have as many scholarships available this offseason compared to years in previous past, and how they've had to tell some players that who are planning on visiting that they can no longer probably accommodate them numbers wise. So obviously, when I said this previously in a different episode, that Bret and staff is really going for it this year. You see them a little bit more aggressive towards getting the 4-star top end talent, as opposed to immediately accepting the normal 3-star that we might have in the past. And I think Bret kind of all but confirmed that today. Shortly after Bret Bielema was done, Barry Lundy Jr. came out, and he kind of echoed a lot of Bret's thoughts. He did give us a little insight on the Zakhari Franklin situation as well. He claimed that he found out through the newswire about Franklin entering the transfer portal. He, again, suggests that he's been too busy with what's going on in the Illini locker room then that he had no idea. But he did talk about that once he started having conversations with Zakhari. Zakhari pretty much knows 75% of the playbook. It's the continuity, and we've talked about this the whole time. Like, this is why this is not just the Illini bringing in a wide receiver one and then hoping that everything works out. The Illini have essentially brought in a wide receiver one, the most decorated returning player in all of college football. And we know that he has previously excelled in this system. And so really, it's all about just making it work at this point, just letting him get comfortable with Luke, getting those reps in, because it's going to be very, very important. But what we do know is that the coaching staff is very excited about having him here. And I'm sure Luke Altmaier's very excited to have him here. And, we haven't heard from Zakhari Franklin yet, but I'm sure he really relishes the opportunity to really show in his last college football season that he has what it takes to excel at the next. Basketball season's over. Not early, late Monday night, Boston Celtics won the NBA Finals 4-1 over the Dallas Mavericks. But summertime also means baseball. And right now, new customers on FanDuel can get $200 in bonus bets with any $5 bet. That's $200 you can use to bet everything from who's going to hit a home run on your favorite baseball team. Unfortunately, mine is the Chicago Cubs, and they lost again to the San Francisco Giants through another blown save. Or you can just do a happiness hedge and just bet on your favorite team losing. And that way you're happy either way. Either you win money or your favorite baseball team wins. Just visit fanduel.com/lockedon and add a big win to your summer bucket list. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thursday is going to be a very big day, as I mentioned earlier, where Josh Whitman has his annual media roundtable. Now, hopefully, I'll be able to partake in this media roundtable. And for that reason, I want to kind of let you guys know, my day one listeners, if there's any certain type of questions that you want to know, let me know in the comment section. If there's one that I think hasn't been asked, I'll go ahead and try to ask it on behalf of you guys. Now, Josh is going to have a lot of eyes and ears on his press conference on Thursday. Now, obviously, Whitman's going to be asked about what I talked about in the first segment on Terrence Shannon Jr. and his jersey, but I believe there's going to be a lot of questions about just college football and college basketball in general, especially now that Josh Whitman has a leadership role in what the world of athletics is going to look like in the future. Again, I say this before, and I'm repeating it right now. Illini fans are very, very lucky that Josh Whitman is a former alum who loves his university and has done a fantastic job in steering our athletics into the right direction. The college sports landscape is changing, and we're just lucky that Josh Whitman is one of those who's kind of directing the sails, and hopefully he'll have Illinois athletics moving with the momentum. That wraps it up for today's episode of Locked On Illini. I hope you enjoyed the content we provided for you today. Simple reminder, it won't cost you a thing if you can just hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It really helps our community grow. Let me know that you're watching in the chat, in the comment section. That helps with the whole YouTube algorithm. I don't really ask for much more than that. If you're interested in talking to me one-to-one, find me at IlliniCast on X, or if you're not a Twitter person, I don't blame you. Join our Discord. Discord is absolutely free. And at some point in the near future, I'm going to be starting giveaways. And so I'm excited about that. I'm working with the department itself on trying to find things for you guys, the audience, because without you, there's no me, there's no Locked On Illini. And I appreciate every single one of you. But until then, ILL, love you guys.